Welcome! Thank you for joining us for today's lesson. This is part of a 13-lesson series brought to you by the Food Trust Nutrition Educators. The Food Trust works to ensure that everyone has access to affordable, nutritious food and the information to make healthy choices. In this series, we'll be covering topics such as how to shop at a farmer's market, stretching your food dollars, storing fruits and vegetables, and more. Join us every other week as we share nutrition information from my plate, as well as tips and tricks to eating more healthy food at every meal. Each bi-weekly lesson will be followed by a recipe featuring a seasonal ingredient you can find at your local farmer's market or grocery store. Meet our nutrition educators, who you'll get to know through our lessons or recipe demonstrations. We're excited to have you with us. Thanks again for joining us. Please fill out our anonymous survey at the end of this video so that we can find out more about who we're reaching and how to serve our audience best. We hope you come back for our next lesson. See you then!
Hello, my name is Charlene, and I'm a nutrition educator here with the Food Trust. A little bit about us: we work hard to make sure people have access to delicious, nutritious food no matter where they live. We also provide nutrition education by using My Plate, which is the basis for every lesson that we teach. So here's just a little overview of the things you want to make sure that you know going forward as you watch our different lessons. For one, you'll notice that half of the plate contains fruits and vegetables. You want to keep this in mind for every single meal. Now, while it can be difficult to think for fruits for dinner and vegetables for breakfast, there are a lot of creative ways in which you can combine both of those to make something delicious as well as nutritious. As you watch our lessons, we'll give you some more ideas onto how to make that happen. Along with that, we're looking for 6 ounces of grains every single day. So that can be half of it whole grains and half of it are refined grains. Whole grains, for instance, are oatmeal, brown rice, quinoa, whole wheat bread. Those are great sources of a nice whole grain. Now, of course, we'll explain a little bit more as to why that's good for us, but you want to keep in mind, first things first, is that it's really great for our hearts. So when you are choosing your grains, you want to make half of your grains whole, meaning that 3 ounces of the day, you want to try to make sure you're getting a whole grain, and you'll find balance between the ones that you like and the refined grains that you prefer. Along with that, we're looking for 6 ounces of protein daily. With 6 ounces of protein, we want to make sure that we want to mix up how we get our protein. There are 2 types: animal-based protein and plant-based protein. With animal-based protein, it provides a great source of iron, which is super awesome for our bodies, but it doesn't provide any fiber. Versus plant-based protein, where the iron is a little bit harder to digest, but it provides us with fiber. That's when you want to make sure you're getting a nice balance of both. When you're choosing the size of meat, you want it to be the size of your palm of your hand. When you're choosing your plant-based protein, you want to at least get like a cup of beans, maybe even a 4th cup of nuts and seeds. Just make sure you're reading the labels and see what serving size is going to work for your protein goals. Last thing we have is dairy. With dairy, we want to make sure we're getting 3 cups of it daily. This is a great source of calcium. But if you don't eat dairy products for whatever reason, there are other options as well. There's non-dairy milk, there's kale, and other dark leafy green vegetables that count as a vegetable on my plate, but also counts as our calcium source as well. So you can kind of Get 2 different food groups covered with 1 vegetable. Along with that, just even fortified orange juice as well as fortified bread that'll have calcium in it. So if you choose to eat dairy products, milk, cheese, and yogurt. If you choose to eat non-dairy milk, dark leafy green vegetables, and fortified products. Thank you so much for tuning in to today's lesson. We look forward to seeing you in the next one. Bye.
Hi, I'm Jen, and I'm a SNAP Ed nutrition educator at the Food Trust. Today, I'm here to talk all about how we can store our fresh fruits and vegetables. You can also watch Alex make a delicious recipe down below. At the end of this video is a short survey that helps us better improve our programming, and you may receive some food bucks or Berks Farm Bucks based on your local participating market. Do you know what some of the benefits are of properly storing your fruits and vegetables? Well, one of the benefits is that it'll make your produce last longer. It'll also help it taste better, and it'll help reduce some of your waste. Now let's think about some of the produce that we might get at the farmers markets and how we're storing it at home. Let's think about some items we like to get at a farmer's market. Some of the greens I like to get are things like spinach and kale, and also some herbs like cilantro. Now when we're going to the market and we're looking at these items, we want to look for the freshest, brightest greens and avoid any yellow or brown discoloration on it so that the product lasts longer at home. Not only that, but we also want to make sure we're properly storing it once we get home. So something that I like to do with my leafy greens like spinach, arugula, kale, lettuce is I keep those items unwashed in my refrigerator. You want to avoid washing them until you're ready to use them. So something that you can do once you get home is if you have a container, make sure that it's unwashed and dry, and you can add a dry paper towel to your leafy greens. Other greens like your asparagus, for example, you can cut off the stems, the bottom of it, and then you can also wrap them in a paper towel to keep them dry or put them in a plastic bag. The other thing I mentioned is getting things like cilantro or different herbs like rosemary, for example. You want to make sure that they're also dry until they're ready to use. So something that you can do is, once you have the bundle or the bunch, just wrap them in a dry paper towel, keep them in your refrigerator until you're ready to use them. So make sure you're washing your greens before use. You want to submerge them in water, give them a good rinse, and also dry them out. Your unwashed greens can last in the refrigerator anywhere from 3 to 10 days. But besides knowing where our greens are going to be stored, we also want to talk about what other fruits and vegetables can be stored and where we should properly store them too. Let's talk about the different ways of storing our fresh produce and some of the benefits. Like we mentioned, it keeps our product around longer, it'll taste better, and it'll also help us save money since we're reducing our waste. As we mentioned, there are a lot of great benefits to properly storing your fresh produce. Here are different methods that you can try at home. One thing that you can do is refrigerate your fresh items. Things like your leafy greens can last in your fridge anywhere from 3 to 14 days. As we mentioned, make sure that they are unwashed until they're ready to use. Once you're ready to use them, wash them thoroughly and dry them. Some other items that we can keep in our refrigerator are things like our berries, cucumbers, beets, broccolis, and others. Another method that we can try at home is freezing. As the seasons change, there are certain items that you might have a harder time to find. One thing we can do to save money and to also keep things around us is to freeze them. Things like our peaches, for example, can be fresh or they can be frozen. Other ones are also things like our berries and our peppers that you can stick in your freezer. These items can last in your freezer up to 6 months. The third method that we have is countertop. Things like our apples and our bananas are ready to eat, and we like to keep those on our countertops. That's a great idea, and those items can last anywhere from 3 to 10 days. Other items that you might try having on your countertop are things like grapes, your pears, and your peaches. Not only that, but things like tomatoes also do well on their countertops. Once you're ready to use your items, make sure you wash them. One other thing to remind yourselves is that once these items have been cut into, you also want to refrigerate them.
Our other method that we have here is our dry dark cabinets. So things like our potatoes and our onions are items that we want to keep in a dry dark spot. These are other items that you can also have. And these items can last anywhere from 1 to 3 months.
Hello, thank you so much for tuning into today's lesson, all about storing fruits and vegetables. We gave you quite a few tips on to store your fruits and vegetables, so let's go over them. We learned when it comes to storing your fruits and vegetables, you want to make sure you are being picky with the fruits and vegetables that you're choosing, especially when they're fresh. You want to get the freshest version possible because that's what's going to last the longest. Along with that, when you think about storing your fruits and vegetables, you want to think of how you can preserve their life so that you don't waste anything. When it comes to storing, for instance, fresh herbs, you want to put them in a jar. Put a little water in that jar just for the stems. Put the herbs in there and then put a plastic bag over it with a rubber band. Put that whole thing in your fridge. And your herbs went from lasting 1 to 2 days to about a week, if not just a little while longer. Along with that, that's how I store my dark leafy greens too. If they still have the stem attached, I put them in the mason jar or any jar with some water, bag over it with the rubber band and put the whole thing in the fridge. This will keep your greens nice and crisp. If you've run out of jars at this point, another thing that you can do for your leafy greens is to wrap them in a paper towel and to put that in a bag within your fridge. This will keep the moisture out of your greens, which is going to keep them fresher for longer. Along with storing your fruits and vegetables, you generally want to store them the way that the market has them. If they are out, generally you can leave them out as well. The only thing that I will say that's a little bit different is at home, you don't want to store your onions and potatoes together because they ripen one another. So you want to make sure you're storing them separately. Same thing with bananas. Bananas ripen very quickly and ripen things around them as well. So you want to make sure you keep that in mind when you're storing them. Last tip I like to give is that you don't want to put your onions in the fridge unless you're planning to use them that day to cut down on your tears. When you store your onions in the fridge, it'll make everything else smell and taste like onions. So you want to make sure you're storing them in a cool, dry place away from your potatoes. Thank you so much for attending today's lesson. We really appreciate it. We'll see you again in the next one. Bye.